Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us for our Thursday weather update, recorded on the 17th of April. Got a lot of weather still to move through, but plenty of dry spells and calm spells as we go into the weekend for some regions, so it's not all bad news. Let's kick off with the satellite map showing 12 hours of water vapor. The darker shaded areas, that's the cooler air being mixed into the more tropical stuff that you can see, or subtropical, in the bright white. So that is a lot of cloud and moisture, but you also see, while it looks like it's clearing for the north, these white blobs that are popping up, those are the more explosive rain clouds caused by the instability, and that can produce some very heavy rain. And because of the high pressure belt out to the east, a lot of this weather is sort of just going around in circles. So it looks like it's clearing southwards, but remember, this is just spinning around kind of like a wheel stuck in mud, and it could still produce some heavy kind of downpours that pop up. But certainly the rainfall forecasts have dropped down a bit today, and I said that on the Monday video, and I'm saying it again today. Expect the rainfall forecasts to continue to change. This is a complicated system. All it takes is for that low or the high to the east to move a little bit left or right, and those downpours that you see coming into the top here and around the Coromandel Peninsula, they can move a little bit left or right, up and down as it moves along. The further down the country, high cloud or thick cloud, not necessarily raining or wet, certainly not in the south. Now, I've been talking a lot this week about the squash zone. Here's a very simple equation for you. High pressure versus low pressure, and it's the part in the middle. So as low pressure kind of moves in, the Coriolis effect, the spin of the earth, trying to pull that low down to the South Pole. As it tries to pull southeastwards, runs into high pressure. So you get this squash of air pressure, and that's what we're seeing here. And the rain gets stuck there as well. Can't move into the high pressure zone, so it sits like a car behind a slow truck, waiting for that moment. So windy weather, and also as the high pressure zone expands, that windy anticyclonic flow coming down the eastern side of the country as well. But the worst of the winds are around northern New Zealand, and places like Auckland not seeing as much rain, but like I say, could still get some heavy rain as we go through the day. But let's try and break down the rainfall as we go through till Easter Monday. You can see the heaviest rain looks to be Eastern Bay of Plenty or across Bay of Plenty, East Cape, Tairāwhiti, down towards possibly the very northern part of Hawke's Bay, although I don't think Hawke's Bay is really at risk. And the other zone west of Nelson, I described it as the northwestern corner of the South Island, but it does not include the west coast. It's areas that drain to the north. These areas well known for having slips and flooding, road problems when you get heavy rain. The good news, I hope anyway, is that that rain is kind of spread out over a few days off and on. It's not necessarily one massive deluge that doesn't stop. And the southern part of the North Island, the western side as well, depending on where you are, could be seeing very limited rainfall, along with Southland, Otago and South Canterbury. Windy weather, so the squash zone, this is a view on the Coromandel Peninsula taken from Flight Simulator using a drone on it. Windy weather here, so this is where we're at when we recorded this in the middle of Thursday. This is the main squash zone over the top part of the country, coming in as this windy east to northeasterly wind. You've also got around the outer edges of the high pressure system, this anticyclonic wind brushing eastern New Zealand. So there's kind of like a couple of things going on. And the worst of the winds are actually mostly around the low, but this part here, interacting with our hills and ranges, means there's going to be some very strong gusts as we go through Thursday. It's not over yet. Some places it's going to get worse today. So let's animate this quickly though. You can see as we go through the next day or so, that windy zone just gradually, very, very slowly moves down and starts to fall apart. The northeasterly flow carries on along the eastern side of the country. And by the time we get into Saturday, most of this stuff is easing in the north of New Zealand. And you can see the two areas, the kind of outer edges of the high pressure zone, that's this big windy nor'easter, and then the spinning one of the low. And that windy stuff is falling apart out in the Tasman. So that is not posing much of a threat to us. So the wind is likely to be bad today, tonight, easing as we go through Friday, and then hopefully breaks apart a bit as we go into the weekend. And of course, windy weather making for some pretty big waves. This is Hahei. So let's have a look at the wave heights at the moment. They are significant along the eastern parts of Northland, some parts of Auckland, certainly Great Barrier Island, Coromandel Peninsula, Western Bay of Plenty. These wave heights, 6-7 meters. So let's animate this for the rest of today and going into tomorrow. You'll see this block gradually moving down and at the same time easing back. Although easing back here to still 4-5 meter waves as we get to the end of Friday. Calmer conditions coming along the western side though, but remember, with the storm out at sea, it's dangerous still around most of the beaches as we go into the weekend. Here's the setup. So we just told you about what's going on with that squash zone. The low at its deepest today. So it's still getting a little more powerful, but that should finish today. And then it gets kind of trapped there and it starts to fall apart while the high to the east starts to balloon out even bigger. So here is rainfall. This is just the 3-hour rainfall, what we normally would show you. It doesn't look as dramatic. You can see the line of heaviest rain to the northeast here, coming into Coromandel Peninsula, some parts of Auckland and Northland still, and then that is gradually moving into the Bay of Plenty. Elsewhere, few spits of rain, bit of rain around. It's not necessarily very much, and it gets lighter and drier the further south you go. Tonight, not a great deal of change except that squash zone, the windy, wet weather is moving gradually along to the east. So Bay of Plenty getting it properly, and it starts to move now in towards that East Cape area. Showers also, or patchy kind of rain, moves down the eastern side of New Zealand along with the windy nor'easter on the outer edges of the big high pressure zone. So it's not just about low pressure, it's low pressure and high pressure. And all it takes is the high to expand a little bit or shrink a little bit, or the low to do the same, and that line of heavy rain gets pushed a little bit left or right. So that's why we keep saying rain forecasts this week are likely to change, including as we go into this event. We are still saying there's instability around, so things could change. Right, Good Friday. This is the lunchtime update showing 24 hours of rainfall from when we recorded this to noon tomorrow. Heavy rain basically going from the Auckland region over to East Cape, with the eastern and central parts of Coromandel Peninsula and all of Bay of Plenty, East Cape, down past Gisborne, all of those areas exposed to this heavy rain. Nelson area also seeing some rain coming through. It's not necessarily very much, but that rain starts to build up, with the low out here to the west still pretty powerful at 980 hectopascals, but that should start to ease back or weaken as we go through into the nighttime. And by Saturday, you can see there 986, so the air pressure is going up. That means it's not as windy around that system as it interacts with the high. Still plenty of isobars around, so exposed areas, marine areas, they're still going to be a bit windy. If you're in a tent, you'll probably notice it. But as far as wind warnings are concerned on land, they're probably not as likely as we go into the actual weekend. Heavy rain around Bay of Plenty, heavy rain around East Cape, heavy rain possible around Nelson and Takaka and those sorts of areas. Driest weather, southern parts of both of the main islands and obviously around Canterbury. By Easter Sunday, look at the high out to the east. So it is moving a little further eastwards, but boy, it's huge. It is stretching down south of New Zealand and it's stretching all the way up to Tahiti and Samoa and Fiji. So on the outer edges of that, that's where all that rain is. That's basically like an atmospheric river, that where you hear that term all the time. You can kind of see it right there coming straight down. And because you've got this invisible brick wall in the sky, it's kind of like a cliff in a river. The river can't go through the cliff, it goes around the edges of it. And that's what you're seeing here. And that's why this part of the North Island, that northeastern corner, is vulnerable to the rain from high pressure, not from low pressure. This is more from the high pressure connecting this up with the tropics. The low itself falling apart, but now the rain comes. And that's quite normal with a low that's fallen apart. That's why we often don't say the word downgraded, because just because it's lost its tropical cyclone status doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the speed and power of the storm. And while the winds fall apart, then the rain is left over. And so west coasters and also around that northwest corner of the South Island, Nelson westwards, getting some of that heavy rain. And it lingers there on Monday as that low falls apart, more instability due to that low pressure. So it's not a wind event by then, but the rain could still be quite heavy. And that's why we're hearing about the risk of flooding rain warnings. Now this low to the north in the subtropics still feeding into the northeastern corner. And a reminder for everyone else around the country with the blue, remember, we don't usually show these 24-hour maps for New Zealand because it always looks blue. We've always got a few little showers around, and that's why we don't generally show it, because you might, hit and miss type of thing. But you can see the South Island's got some rain, the northeastern corner of the North Island's got some rain, and those in the more pale blue areas, not very much. Maybe a few showers around. Still the chance it could be a heavy shower though, keep that in mind with the instability. Tuesday, that low from the subtropics looks a bit like a storm, but it is still offshore. There is low pressure over near Australia though, so this low could still drift a little closer, but there is a big high pressure system here south of Aussie that is ballooning out, and so hopefully for those who don't want more rain, or wind, that high pressure will come in and just keep that storm offshore, or that low offshore. The other feature, as that high arrives, southerly winds coming in around the South Island. Nothing major, but just a bit of a temperature drop, maybe more noticeable on Wednesday. The high creeps in, the low is very close to us, and that brings in another squash zone between the low and the high, this windy part here, where it kind of pushes in and can't go any further to the southwest there. So stuck between high pressure zones, that low, one to keep an eye on as we go through next week. Those windy southeasterlies may mean that western areas, though, are mostly dry. Here is the 7-day rainfall brought to you by resupply.co.nz. This is a different kind of map to the other rain maps we showed you. The colours are reversed, so that can be confusing. But the bottom of the scale is here now. So what we look for is the orange areas, or gold. And you can see here the northeastern corner of the North Island looks most exposed to rain, and the northwestern corner of the South Island. So it's not really a surprise there. And speaking of resupply, we talked about this the other week, grass seed time of the year, and we had drought when we said that, and now then we got followed by a flood, and now we've got more wind and heavy rain. So the good thing is the ground's getting wet, or is about to, so that's the good side of it. Soil temperatures and general temperatures are above normal. Parts of the South Island have been over 2 degrees above normal since April started. Lack of frost, there have been some, but not a huge amount of them. Just watch for the heavy rain, don't want the grass seed to wash away. Resupply.co.nz, please support them, as they are very kindly supporting us in our videos at the moment. And that is all from me on what has been a pretty stormy week. It's going to be stormy today. Keep up to date with those Met Service warnings and watches. We're away for Good Friday, but we are returning on Easter Saturday because of what is happening here with the weather. So join us again on Saturday around the middle of the day or early afternoon as we update you with the severe weather risks and the good stuff. It's not all bad news. There's good stuff in this too. Have a great Easter weekend. If I don't talk to you before then, well, I probably won't talk to you, but Saturday, we'll see you then with the next video.